Welcome. My name is Karista Santos Morochek, and you are watching the 4th episode of Karista's Corner Live. I'm the teen correspondent for the Staten Island Advance and SILive.com. I write a column by the same name, Karista's Corner, and this show will complement on a different medium, television. Going forward, I plan to discuss topics of interest to teens as well as adults living on Staten Island and beyond. I also plan to have prominent Staten Islanders on my show, men and women who have had a lasting impact on our borough, whose expertise in their fields is unparalleled. If you tuned into my last show, it was very exciting. My guest was the former borough president of Staten Island, the Honorable James Molinaro. Today, I am beyond thrilled to present to you an equally fascinating Staten Islander on the show who is a well-respected leading authority in the Staten Island medical community. Please welcome my guest, Dr. Abdul Rehman. Dr. Rehman is a board-certified internist and hepatology oncologist on Staten Island for more than 40 years and is an attending internal physician at Staten Island University Hospital. Dr. Rehman serves on the board of directors of the Rotary Club of Staten Island and the Staten Island YMCA. He is formerly a board member of the Staten Island Children's Museum, the Staten Island Mental Health Society, and the AIDS Advisory Council member of New York City Board of Education. At age 23, Dr. Rehman earned his medical degree from the renowned Dow Medical College in Pakistan and emigrated to the United States in 1968. In 2009, Dr. Rehman opened an office in Sunnyside. In addition to his own practice, he has worked at the Brooklyn Hospital since 1973, where he was the senior attending physician for the Department of Internal Medicine, president of the professional staff, and chairman of the medical board. Dr. Rehman was also a recipient in the established business category to receive the Lewis R. Miller Business Leadership Award. Dr. Rehman is highly esteemed by so many people, including myself, and I'm so glad that he's agreed to be here with me today. Thank you, Dr. Rehman.
It's good to be here.
Today is a special installment of my show because Dr. Rehman and I will be discussing a topic very close to my heart. As some of you may know, last November I was crowned Miss Staten Island Outstanding Teen 2016 for the Miss America organization. The wonderful thing about the Miss America organization is that it's the largest scholarship provider for women in the country. It also gives young ladies and teens like me a voice to advocate for their personal platforms and to hopefully engage the community in getting involved to help those less fortunate. And that's what I'm here to do today. My chosen platform is increasing bone marrow transplant registry for minorities. Why? Because the son of my mother's dear friend passed away on Christmas Eve 2013. He was 11 years old and had a cancer called acute lymphocytic leukemia, also known as ALL. Just a little background on Kyle to let you know what a wonderful young man he was. Kyle was an athlete, and his constant fatigue was initially dismissed by doctors as exhaustion from sports. Right before Thanksgiving 2012, however, Kyle lost consciousness and was rushed to the emergency room a week before Thanksgiving, where he was diagnosed with ALL. Kyle underwent intense chemotherapy at Smilow Cancer Hospital and went into remission by Christmas. Sadly, he relapsed in January. After more chemotherapy, he needed a bone marrow transplant at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston. All he needed was a bone marrow transplant, but it was too late. Born on Easter, Kyle went home to God on Christmas Eve 2013. ALL is the most common cancer in children. It spreads to the liver, spleen, and lymph nodes. ALL doesn't produce tumors, and acute means it's fast progressing. Prognosis is good in kids, but without treatment, ALL can be fatal in a couple of months. It is a little-known fact that when someone with cancer needs a bone marrow transplant, not only does the blood have to match, but the ethnicity has to match as well. I've chosen this issue as my platform because Kyle was African American of Jamaican descent, and the registry for minorities is incredibly low. African Americans, Asians, Latinos, and mixed races are at a distinct disadvantage when it comes to finding a bone marrow match. There are many bone marrow donor registries in the U.S., the largest of which is the National Marrow Donor Program, with more than 6 million donors. The registry represents a diverse group. Caucasians are the largest group with 3 million donors, African Americans with 500,000, Hispanics with 550,000, Asians with 420,000, and multiple races only 120,000. Dr. Rehman, this is where we need your expertise. My friend Kyle couldn't find a match because of his ethnicity. When someone signs up to be a bone marrow donor, blood tissue traits are matched by a special blood test called the histocompatibility antigen test. This is different than a person's blood type, such as A, B, or O. Everything must perfectly match by ethnicity. Tissue types are genetic, but sibling matches only happen 25% of the time. Kyle's family members were not in that percentage, and they didn't match. What else can you tell us about this histocompatibility antigen test and how it works?
Well, basically, HLA typing, where you classify as to what kind of a genetic makeup that person has, the donor has. There, what you need is to make sure that the special protein that is present on these cells that we can detect, that really classifies as to what type of a genetic makeup a person's cells have. That's called HLA typing, human leukocyte antigen typing. And these antigens are present on the cells. And if they can match with the recipient and the donor, then the tissue that you are actually transplanting into the recipient will not cause any damage to that individual, will take on like its new home. Now, probably I should explain that blood is made inside the bone marrow, and there are the stem cells in the bone marrow that generate different kinds of blood cells, red cells, white cells, and platelets. And the stem cells, if they can be salvaged and given into a person that needs them, needs to make a new kind of blood that is healthy, then those stem cells can be life-saving. So that's why the matching is important. And we can do HLA typing on individuals, on the donors, and make a bank of those people. And when somebody needs bone marrow transplant, we can find the stem cells that are closest match to the recipient. And if we can, there are different ways of really classifying them, but there are about 10 markers that we usually test for. And if 9 out of 10 can match, then you got a perfect, very good match. 10 out of 10 is excellent if we can get that. But even 9 would be, very helpful. So it's a very, very promising treatment, provided people know about it and participate in it, and then become donors.
Well, when I held my bone marrow drive, many people showed up because of how simple the procedure was. At bone marrow drives, all you have to do is just swab your inner cheeks for 30 seconds each. Seal it in the envelope, and then it gets sent into the registry to see if you're a match. If you are a possible match, the registry will contact you, and then you will go from there.
Right.
Although during my drive, I had to turn away people over 55 because they were too old, according to deletebloodcancer.org, which says you have to be between the ages of 18 and 55 to donate. Can you please tell us why they can't donate?
Again, it comes back to the stem cells. That's what we need really to plant into the recipient, and they can then generate the blood cells that the recipient needs to make the normal blood. Stem cells also, we used to think that stem cells are eternal, but they are not. As we learn more about them, we realize that as we age, our stem cells also age. And although they are generated in new generations, but over certain multiplications or certain times over the years, they also age, and their biological functions and their efficacy also decreases. So it's not necessarily 100% safe when you take a stem cell from an individual that is, let's say, 50 or 55, as compared to somebody who is young. If you take somebody who is 25, the stem cells are supposed to be much more healthy and would give much better results than if you take it from somebody who is 50 or above. So to be on the safe side, we harvest stem cells from people that are young, between those ages that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And what happens when a person with AIDS or some type of disease also needs a bone marrow transplant? They have to find somebody with that disease as well?
No. If somebody has a disease and you're trying to treat that disease, so what you do is aggressively treat that disease. But many of these treatments that we have are very toxic, and they actually kill the bone marrows. So because with the treatment we have destroyed somebody's blood forming capability, then we have to regenerated. We have to make it whole again, and that's where you have to replant. So, but in leukemia specifically, the example that you mentioned, if you treat leukemia aggressively, what you're trying to do is destroy all those bad cells in the blood and the bone marrow that are making bad cells. So you destroy all that generation of cells, put new stem cells in them and tell them to make normal cells. And for that, you give very strong medications first to destroy the existing marrow, existing stem cells that have gone bad, and then put the new stem cells and then tell them to make normal cells. And they will make normal cells based on where they came from. If the person was healthy in that age bracket, let's say 25 years old, chances are those stem cells that came from that healthy individual will produce healthy cells. One thing very important about stem cells is that a progenitor stem cell, the earlier on, can be directed to make white cells of this particular type or platelets or red cells. So wherever they are needed, they generate their new cells into that particular category. So somebody is diseased, and you don't have to find a diseased kind of a stem cell for that. No. What you're trying to do is get rid of the diseased cell, any tendency to make those kind of abnormal cells, and then put new stem cells into that person's marrow. And once a marrow is implanted with new stem cells, and if once they take being a good match, then they make normal healthy cells, and that's exactly what we are looking for. So that the person, you see, I like sickle cell disease because I have really treated lots of sickle cell disease patients in my early practice. And there also now stem cells, if you can get a normal healthy person's stem cells into their blood, then they make normal hemoglobin, not sickle cell hemoglobin. And if you can do that on a larger scale, you can actually eradicate this disease down the generations.
Oh wow, there's a lot of new research about this.
Yeah. However, because sickle cell is not a cancerous condition and it's not a malignant condition, so scientific data is not there enough to justify giving these sicklers that are not afflicted by a cancer condition to give them strong chemotherapy to destroy their cells and then give them a bone marrow and hope that that will take. So for that reason, we use that sickle cell population in dire conditions only for transplant. But in cancers, there is a justification because if you do not treat the cancer, then obviously the patient's life expectancy is very low. And there you are, getting a better results by giving these stem cell transplants.
That's a great thing. I was talking to someone recently who was called a few years after he registered because he was a possible match. They did further testing and then they found out that he wasn't a match. Can you tell us a little bit why this happens often?
Well, you see, when you, let's say the swabs that you take, if you take it from 1,000 people, probably all of these will be in the registry. However, when you are actually looking for somebody, some people may match, let's say 8 out of 10, some may match 7 out of 10. So in a dire condition, you would use somebody who is not perfect match, but that's the only choice you have. But if you can get a better match, although somebody is called, put on alert that we may need you, and he's 8 out of 10, but you were lucky enough to find somebody that was 10 out of 10, then you will probably tell that person to hold back and let's use the one that is better match. So it can happen. Also, I mean, in some conditions, if somebody is in the bank and was healthy when the typing was done, and later on they develop a condition. You mentioned HIV/AIDS, it could be any other malignant condition that this particular donor can develop. If they develop that, then they are no longer suitable for donation. Similarly, if they develop a kidney failure or heart failure or any other condition that makes them sick, then you do not want to use those people as donors.
Which is why you're not allowed to register if you have those diseases.
If you have those diseases, definitely you're not a donor. But,
because at my drive,
but after typing and you being healthy, even then if you develop these things down the road, when they call you 3 years later or 5 years later that we need your bone marrow, at that time if they find that since the original typing you have developed something that really makes you less of a donor or a risky donor, then that person may be bypassed. if you get somebody better match. Yes. So that can happen.
Because people were actually coming to me at my drive-in. They said, is it okay? I have this disease. Can I still register? No, because it's dangerous, as you said.
Well, not all diseases.
Well,
some
certain, yes.
that can be transmitted.
Yes.
Yeah, through blood. Yes.
Not all, but the ones they were saying, there's a whole list.
Hepatitis is one of the major ones. Yes.
Yes.
Because it can be silent, and you may not know it unless you are being tested thoroughly, and then they realize that you are carrying hepatitis, and that might be transmitted to the recipient, to the patient.
But donating bone marrow is much easier than many people believe it to be. There are two methods of donation, a surgical procedure and a non-surgical procedure. The patient's doctor will choose which one is best for the patient. The non-surgical procedure is called a peripheral blood stem cells donation. On the day of donation, blood is removed through a needle on one arm and passed through a machine that separates the blood-forming cells. The remaining blood is returned to you through the other arm. The surgical procedure is a bone marrow donation that takes place in a hospital operating room. Doctors use needles to withdraw liquid marrow from the back of your pelvic bone. Donors receive anesthesia and feel no pain during the donation. Both procedures are fairly simple, and the time it takes for a donor to recover is not long at all. Most donors are able to recover to school, work, and other activities within only 1 to 7 days. Can you please tell us a little bit more about the procedures and how simple it is to donate in the donation process?
Okay, the first procedure that you mentioned, taking from the blood. There are some stem cells in the peripheral blood that circulate ordinarily, but not enough really to make a good size donation. So when when the decision by the medical team is made that we will use the blood to harvest stem cells, then we give some injection to the patient 3 or 4 days prior to that. Every day you give injections to stimulate these stem cells to generate and come into the peripheral blood. And once we know that there is a significant number, usually after 4 days, then the patient is taken, the blood is taken out of one arm, and it goes through a machine and it's centrifuged there, and stem cells are separated by special techniques. And the rest of the blood automatically is sent back to the body. So after, let's say, in the 3-4 hours or 5 hours, whatever it takes for them to harvest the amount of stem cells that are required, person should feel fairly comfortable and be functional fully. Although, after that, being in the chair and going through that procedure, there may be a little bit of fatigue and tiredness and other body aches. It's nothing that is life-threatening to anybody. And once you really put in the perspective that you are saving somebody's life, patients or the donors really don't even feel that they have done something. It's fairly simple.
And it's the most common one used too.
That's the common. 75% to 80% people
use the non-surgical.
Use the non-surgical ones, basically because of its simplicity. And the other procedure is not that difficult either. The bone marrows, your physician, the hematologist, do the bone marrows regularly on patients with a simple needle just to test the blood conditions. For transplant, you need a lot of marrow, significant size. So for that, you have to make some needle punctures in several parts of your
the pelvic,
hip bone, iliac crest. So for that, it's easy to put people to put under general anesthesia so that you can collect a significant amount of bone marrow, and then you use stem cells from that. But even there, basically all you have is needle marks, and there is no cut, there is no stitches required or anything. Basically just a little band-aid on top, and you are ready to go home. You are functional. You get up and do whatever you have to do. Obviously, the bones will hurt. The area will be a little sore for a couple of days. But again, if you keep that in mind that you have done something wonderful and saved somebody's life, then the pain simply disappears.
It's so easy. It's so simple, and people don't realize how simple it is.
It is because we, I think, have not been able to tell healthy individuals in their early years that donating organs, and especially bone marrow, is our blood, is so simple, and yet many people don't realize it. They are busy in their work and whatever else, and they have not been exposed to it. You did mention something about what did you say about simplicity of the procedure itself, but the need for the ethnic makeup. You see, in the world becoming a global village now, and people are intermarrying and having mixed races and all, it is so difficult to find good matches unless you can get people from all ethnic backgrounds and all mixtures and all kinds of genetic makeups to become donors. So then if you need a donation for a person who is, let's say, the patient that you mentioned, with the different, if
he was
the
African
father
American of Jamaican descent.
Jamaican descent, but you may have a Chinese father and a Hispanic mother,
or
with
like
the offspring.
myself.
Yeah, yourself.
I'm half Polish, half Filipino.
There you go. And in that case, unless you have that kind of a genetic makeup and you have enough pool of donors in that makeup, your chances of finding a good match go down. So I think it's important, especially for the minorities and the mixed races, for them to come up and donate more.
Exactly. That's why we have to get the word out.
Because there, your population total catchment area is so small. And if those people do not donate, others may donate it, but the match will not be perfect. So that's a good point to make. That
it is, and it's important that people know about this.
Exactly. Minorities or mixed races must have more, proportionately more donors, so that their needs can be met also. Because they cannot really approach to a broader pool where the matches may not be there, because if this is all Caucasian race or all Asian in a single kind of a makeup, then the matching with that kind of a mixed race is going to be difficult, yes.
Okay, now it's my favorite part, the lightning round.
Uh-oh.
What's the best advice you can give to students dreaming of becoming a doctor one day?
That's an easy question, and yet it's very difficult. I may not be the best person to answer this question now, because I'm the old school. And where I come from and the makeup that I have, I would say there is nothing, no profession more noble or more satisfying to you than being a medical practitioner. And yet, sadly, what I see now, where this profession is going, I don't know whether I will really be emphatically telling my grandchildren that this is necessarily the best profession for them.
Oh, really?
Why do I say that? Because this profession, by history, was a noble profession, cared very little to nothing about the rewards, financial rewards. When I started practice and I wanted to ask my mentor, my chairman of the department, what should I charge? I'm starting practice, tell me how the business side of it. He says, shh, I never talk fees. Talk to my secretary, she'll tell you what she charges. But I never talk about fees with the patients. We are very happy to take care of people, and whatever their insurances are, or whatever their ability to pay is, they pay. That was then, in 50s and 60s, before that. But now, there is no such thing as your determination of fee. What you will be paid is now being determined by third parties, by insurance companies, governmental agencies, and others. So now, the business side of it has to be considered, and I'm no expert on that, quite frankly. My makeup is not to tell people how, as to what is the best field for them. But I think there is still enough humanity left in people that if they feel that they are there to help people and to do something for somebody who needs help and they need a proper kind of a professional approach to it, then being a physician is what I would recommend, yes. I think this is a great field, but more than money, the satisfaction you get when you treat somebody and you help and you see the results that are positive, there's no payment better than that.
Because a lot of things have changed in the medical field, especially with the new electronic prescriptions. Do you think the new electronic prescriptions are a good idea, and do you think computer hackers can abuse it for facial gain?
We are all evolving, and previously the written prescriptions were being abused also and stolen. And now that electronically we can do a lot better. Electronic prescriptions have definitely improved the overall care, and just 2 days ago they became really mandatory. Prior to that, it was optional. For the last 10 years that I've been using them, I found them very helpful. But if hackers use them, we will have hackers, other hackers who will tell us how to protect that. So hopefully the The technology will find a solution for itself, but we cannot, keep away from this technology. This is tremendous. The last 2-3 years, the best change that has occurred in this profession is electronic records and prescribing abilities, and there is no turning back.
What do you like to do for fun?
My fun really is, I love languages, literature. I love music, but I'm a poet. So I write poetry.
I love poetry too.
And I love poetry, and there is so much poetry written in my language by classic old poets that needs to be translated also. So I do some of the translations for real classics, but I do enough of my original poetry. I have 5 published books already.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and in South Asia, where I come from Pakistan and India, I am better known as a poet than as a physician.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Is it poetry or?
Poetry, yes.
Wow.
Urdu poetry.
I have to go read them.
I do not have English translations of my poetry.
You can help me translate them.
I write it in my language, but now I'm writing a book on spirituality in English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that is based on the poetry of Sufi poets in Middle East and in Far East and in South Asia. Yes. So spirituality is something that binds us together.
Yes.
Humanity is connected through spirituality. The spirit within us is the same, whether you are Hispanic or Chinese or Indian or wherever you are from.
Yeah.
Whether you are a Hindu or a Jewish person or Christian or Muslim, spirit within you is from the same Creator, and that combines us. So I find that subject very interesting.
That's a great thing.
Yeah, it is.
Who is the greatest influence in your life?
My life, my dad. Yeah, he was a homeopathic physician, and he was a good clinician, diagnostician. And when I was very young, I was very impressed by how he used to help people. I grew up in Kashmir, in a village, small little rural area, and I was always in Pakistan, yes. And I used to emulate that, and basically looking up to him, I decided to be a physician, yes.
Wow.
In literature, I'm very impressed by Rumi. Jalaluddin Rumi was a poet that is in Konya, Turkey, buried there. But he was from that part of the world, from the area that is Afghanistan, north from Pakistan. So
he was inspiration for your literature.
My literature, it was Rumi's thought process and Sufi literature that I was impressed by. And he had a disciple or a student in modern day Pakistan, Iqbal. He was a student of Rumi. He was somebody who was influenced by Rumi. So his poetry also is something that I look up to, yes.
Oh,
so Iqbal and Rumi are the people that influenced me in literature.
That's so interesting. Wow. You must feel you're so accomplished. I really admire you.
I don't know about that, but I'm very busy because of these things. These things keep me up at night. Keep writing, keep reading, yes.
That's also good advice to give other people too.
Yes, the physician especially must have a hobby, otherwise they cannot retire. So you have to have something to do besides profession, and I have done that, thank God.
Well, that's great. Very accomplished, thank you. Well, that concludes the 4th episode of Carista's Corner Live, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. I'd like to thank Dr. Rehman for being on my show, and hopefully he'll come back again and see us soon. Until then, just remember, people will forget what you said, but will always remember how you made them feel. Thank you, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
It is all mine.